Welcome to Abroad While Black this week. We look forward to interacting with you guys. As you know, we've changed our format, so we're actually pre-recording. So let us know how you feel about that. If you have any input or feedback, we'd love to hear it. This also means that we'll try to get you the information for shows ahead of time, so that if you have any questions or things you want to know, we can actually incorporate them into the show. But hopefully one of us will be live, or one of our assistants will be live on the video, so that we can still be answering your questions real time that you might have. So we know that I'm Cordy Aziz. I am the founder and executive director of Environment 360, and I've lived in Ghana for 10 years now.
My name is Sean Burrows. I'm the co-founder of Ingressive for Good, a foundation that aims to train 1 million African youth and deploy $1 million in training and connect them to 5,000 jobs. Also, I'm the CEO of Burrows Enterprises, and I want to build an economic bridge between Africa and her diaspora. Today is an amazing day. We've had a very interesting week, so I'm very much so happy about jumping into talking about tips to travel like a local. But before we get into that, we want to start talking about some of the current events for the week. Courtney, did anything jump out to you this week? Anything touch your soul, or something you felt like you just had to touch on today?
Well, I mean, I try to limit my U.S. news just because it keeps my soul together. But I mean, I do find it interesting. It looks like Cardi B and Candace Owens had a little bit of beef. Now, beefing with Cardi will get you on the list.
You know what, though? I must say, I missed that one. What I did hear about Candace Owens is that she did not get to speak on the RNC platform. They actually picked somebody else over her. But to know that she got into it with Cardi B, I'm actually happy. Cardi B is one of those people who probably most definitely should not be representative of anybody's political views. But what I do love about her is that she is authentic, and she does tell her perspective in a way that I think she does reflect the views of a lot of people, fortunately or unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it was really interesting because Cardi basically said that Candace was like a white man's slave.
Mm-hmm.
That Candace was basically a white man's slave, and that basically she was out spewing talking points. But what I find interesting about this is I think Cardi is the Democratic slave. And for me, this is sort of, Candace actually snapped back. She actually held her own, basically saying that at least she's knowledgeable on the subjects that she talks about, and she understands what they're saying. And I have to agree with this, and I think I've said this. I think that we take too many token Negroes and putting out the cause, and 9 times out of 10, these women hold some certain qualities together. They're light skinned, they are ghetto, or they fly off on an emotional thing. And there's something that people think have wide appeal because they can cross over both the educated and the uneducated. And though, I mean, I don't think Cardi has a place in politics, I'm not going to lie. I like some Cardi B. I mean, since she came out with the red bottoms, these is bloody shoes, I feel like Cardi is like my inner girl secretly. So, I mean, I love Cardi for music. I don't know how I feel about Cardi in politics.
That's the thing. I think I never got the feeling that Cardi wanted to be in politics. Again, I put Cardi in this space, right? Because she's a public figure, she has an opinion. But again, I put her in this space. Do I go to Cardi B for advice? No, of course not. I would never ask her for political advice. But if I was curious about where certain people of a certain demographic are, or what some of their viewpoints would be, that would be where I see that Cardi B has value. If I wanted to send a particular message to certain people that follow Cardi B, that a person I would go to deploy that message. And I think it's very important that we realize kind of where people have value and what points or where they are in the grand scheme of things. But again, is she a political advisor? No. But has she ever said she was a political advisor? No. And if she doesn't like Candace Owens and she has a platform to say it and to roast her and walk her down, more power to her. She's earned that right.
Yes, but I'm all apprehensive about putting these ghetto people in front of everybody, making it seem like they're the voice of Black people, and we all relate to them. I think it's really an age-old tactic. I wouldn't be surprised if Cardi ends up on CNN giving political commentary, though that's not what she does. Once again, I just feel like at some point, this is why I feel like the Democrats are really going to struggle, and they're going to continue to struggle because we have a whole class of people that like Cardi as music, but when they see these antics, it's like the Democratic Party is really trying too hard to reach everybody, the unreachable, the in between, the conservative Black, the AKAs, the HBCUs,
But
the
why?
mid professional. Like they're just trying too much.
But why? But why are they doing this? Because they need all of those people.
To defeat Trump.
They need those. We all need to vote in the same place to defeat Trump, because Trump's base is his base. He's been speaking to them the entire time. He has not failed them in his antics, his approach, his policies. He is white Tupac. Like seriously. You still there?
Once again, let's see how this plays out. But I'm all about, like, I believe in don't give people too much of a platform. And once again, this for me, like, she just fits the stereotypical let's get Black people to tune in and get ratings type scenario. And I feel like it's sort of sad. Outside of that, though, I think that I feel like, it's really just a little bit sad. And I think that music can be used as commentary. Like I know you had interest in this Burna Boy, the Monster You. And I feel like, yes, they can be used for commentary on what's going on in society. But I think that unless you're very well educated on something, you should probably stay in your lane where you do very well.
I think so. I think you have key points. And then you brought up something very interesting. So the Burna Boy Monster You Made is technically what I hope some of these artists would aspire to be. Because I get the feeling that in listening to Burna Boy, do I feel like he's intelligent? Very much so. Do I feel like he's up on every nuance of political culture or whatever all across the world? No, I don't. But I feel like he was able to make this amazing song that acted as a snapshot into the feeling or the culture of what's going on right now. And this song, again, called Monster You Made. There are several things that he taps into that when he's speaking about Monster You Made, that to me does not give it the feeling of he's blaming them as much as he's pointing out some of the things that are going on. Some of the things he's pointing out is like how exactly, like if we are using your educational system, if we are living in spaces where like all of us everywhere, and he's making this a Pan-African message, but all of us everywhere are going through the same types of struggle, the same types of being ostracized or pushed out of certain spaces. I think it's an amazing song, and I think it touches on what some of these artists should be doing and should be saying in their spare time. And I do think they have every right to voice the opinions of the communities they represent. And if the community has voted them as a representative to them, then you need to understand exactly what that means.
So yeah, I totally get what you're saying about Burna Boy, and I do think that hip hop artists definitely have the right to say something. I think that, this is even the genesis of hip hop, right? It's basically poetry within rap that basically talks about a particular cause. I think that that's always been rap, and I think that you can bring highlight to certain issues. We've had a lot of conscious rappers, Black Alicious, Talib, The Roots. The list goes on and on.
Yes.
I thought the imagery was interesting. I thought the white boy singing the hook was the most interesting. And I think that it's really ironic that you have a song talking about Monster You Made, and then you have this white boy on there singing, this is what you've created It's like, dude, are you not part of them? Like
I
Burner
think
Boy, was
I
there
think
no black person available? I just have to know. Was there just no black person available to sing the hook? I just need to know this.
um, so I think you have to understand how crossover music hits work. Um, this is a very strategic song. So not only is Burner Boy creating a hit or an anthem that groups like Black Lives Matter and any of these other social groups can use as a part of their whatever. If you're looking at any new movies coming up, I definitely feel like this will be pulled into a movie. But then you also have to look at how this is going to cross over into the other sectors that don't necessarily listen to Afro beats. It's been something that's been used. If you remember what Jay-Z did over a decade ago, where he did a rock album with Linkin Park. It's a tactic that's been used. I think it's a smart tactic. And I think him
Yeah, but that
using
thing with
Chris
Linkin
Martin
Park wasn't
from
making a
Coldplay,
conscious thing about white people making monsters.
it's not
For me,
about
there's a difference.
necessarily
Like,
about white people. All well,
I
I mean,
mean, Run
either way,
DMC
if
had
they're gonna
walked this
help you,
way. I mean, we know all about crossover music, but there's a difference
exactly.
between wanting to cross over and having the white boy sing your hook. If you needed a crossover hit, boo, you could have just done a light skinned girl like Cardi B. Cardi
That's
comes
a
back
different type
again
of
for the win.
crossover. That's a different type. That's a completely different type of crossover. He's
I mean, you have
Coldplay,
Lizzo out there. There's a lot of people that already have a crossover effect that
completely
if they,
different. Do you listen to Coldplay? I know back in your days in Peoria, Illinois,
I
you was
love
over there.
Coldplay.
Okay, so do you know who Chris Martin is? And then you know what
I
type of crowd listens to Coldplay. The people who listen to Lizzo and the people who listen to Cardi B are different than the people who listen to Coldplay. 100%. Would you agree or disagree?
like who was Coldplay? They like 8 years.
I'm just
People
saying,
don't
am
even
I
know who
lying?
Coldplay is right now. People don't even know who
Where's the
Coldplay
lie?
is.
You know who it
I mean,
is. Those of
I
your
know who
ilk.
it is, but
Candace
I do think
Owens.
that it's
Candace
also
Owens
interesting.
knows who. Look, Candace Owens knows who Coldplay is.
That's that's fine. I do think it's interesting though that Burna Boy did make this thing. I think it's really interesting because one thing that we were talking about earlier is that he did actually sort of bring all of the struggles of Black people, and it shows that it's worldwide. So the imagery
Mhm.
is reflective of the circumstances happening in the United States and in the UK with the brutality, police brutality, and isolating. But it also looks at the element of foreign funded war in Africa and making these soldiers that were very cut. And it also touched on something that Black people face worldwide, which is poverty. And poverty really does make a lot of monsters. I've often have my husband and I talk, and we say basically, poverty will make you mad. Poverty will make you mad. I've seen people argue over us before and like really be ready to throw blows. I've seen people argue over like who's sitting on the broken chair. Poverty will
Yeah,
make you mad.
agreed. Poverty can ruin your life. It can ruin your perspective as well. Um, so with that one being said, yeah, he touched on a lot of things, burning the
And
pile of money, the European education. He even touched on
I think
apartheid.
a lot of times Black people, the number one excuse I think we hear when people talk about moving abroad is it always comes down to money. And it's so interesting to me how so many people are used to living in poverty that they can't even
Mhm.
imagine that even with the small amount of cash they have, that they can actually make an exit plan. So you hear everybody talk about, well, I don't really have money to do that, and it's just not that easy. And I mean, I have a lot of bills to pay and debt to pay. People, it always comes down to money. And I think that when you are able to break that poverty mentality, and I think we had a guest 2 weeks ago already talk about the mindset so that you can actually start to see what is possible. If you don't have a whole lot of money, you don't have to have $50,000 to move abroad. You don't have to have $20,000 to move abroad. Depending on your plan and how you've executed it, you might be able to execute with just $2,000 or $3,000. You say you don't have it, but I guarantee you, when you start keeping a running log of your expenses, you definitely have it.
And
If you
that's
got a
actually
Netflix account, you got it.
that's actually a great segue into what we are going to jump into today, which is living like a local. Again, if you are moving to different places and you want to eat, drink, and sleep and enjoy and entertain yourself the same way you did in the U.S., just realize that you are subscribing to, at a global standard, a premium level of service or a premium level of access that's going to cost you. And if you know how things work when you're importing and exporting things, if you like something that's already expensive in the US, if you're taking it in another foreign economy where that thing is not indigenous to, it's just going to be that much more expensive. So I think that's a great place to jump in today. So I think that some really interesting areas to jump in when living like a local are considering the people, considering the culture and the language, and in many ways looking at, I focus mainly on food, but basically your buying habits in general are gonna what dictates what living like a local means in different places. Cordy, is there anything? Where do you want to start off at? What are you thinking
So for me, I
before
think
we
we
just
have to
go
have the
into the different?
definition of living like a local, because we know that I'm an admin of a sisters repatriation group to Ghana. And it's so interesting that people hop on and they're like, I'm going to live like a local. And, I can't wait to do all these things. And I think the first thing we have to do is define what exactly is local, because I think that there's so many different misperceptions about what local is. So for me, I think it's important to define or to break the stereotype that local means living like you're broke, right? I think that there's a
Okay.
difference between, there's different levels of local, just like there's different levels of economic status in the US. So where you want to find yourself on that local chart is actually going to be your determining factor for where your money needs to be when you look at moving, right? So when I look at this, there's local, like I live in one room, we share a communal bathroom, I make, banku in the court. There's local, like I work at a bank. I'm renting a 3-bedroom house. I'm with my wife, but my mother lives with us. I don't have a vehicle yet. I still take Trotro to work. Then there's local, like I'm up and coming. So I've been working for up and coming real estate or financial sector. I'm maybe paid on commission. I've actually bought an apartment or I'm building my house. I have a vehicle. I'm still maybe in my late 20s, early 30s, not married yet, but planning on getting married next year. And then there's a local, like I'm legacy wealth. I don't even have to do nothing but wake up and roll over and choose which car I want to drive. So I think that it's important to realize that there are different levels of local, like not all local is created equal.
Very, very, very true. Very true. Because I mentioned that I remember being in Lagos, going to a house party and meeting this mid 40-year-old guy who basically never had a job in his entire life, and the only thing he did was just throw parties at his house. His one of his father's many houses, many mansions along the city. So yes, there are levels. There are definite levels to this thing. So if I'm describing what I mean living like a local, I'm coming at it from the me perspective, the people that probably would be more so getting a lot of information from this type of channel, Abroad While Black. And those are the people who are coming from the US and moving, let's say, to the African continent or moving to Europe or Asia or any other place. And what I really look at is when it comes to mainly buying habits, how many of the things are that you're buying, that you're consuming on a daily basis are things that are imported versus things that are able to be purchased, used, repaired if necessary locally. Those are basically things that I consider. To a certain extent, just off certain experiences that I've had, buying a Toyota, it in many ways could almost be living like a local, from the Ghana or Lagos perspective, given that almost every car here, a large percentage of them are Toyotas. So that means all of the local mechanics know how to work on them more or less. The parts are going to be readily available and different things like that. And then just the general experience is going to be cheaper to upkeep versus if you had a lesser known car, like if you were here, again, in Lagos or Accra, and you had like a Chevy or a Ford or a Chrysler or something of that nature. Does Chrysler even exist anymore?
It is. In fact, a funny story. My neighbor has a Chrysler, and this is why it's important to also, like, when you're buying these things, realize how they react in Africa, because they don't always act the same. And she was just saying that her car wouldn't start because the engine's cool, and apparently when the engine gets to a certain level, like, you have to take it a while to like warm back up for it to start. Just craziness. I didn't even go into it, but I was like, you see, that can't be my life. But we're all different. So for me, when I define living like a local, it's maintaining the lifestyle that you live within the U. We do have communities that are poorer than the poorest African community. I think there was a study done where it said Baltimore, basically, some of the people were living poorer than other African cities. So I think that we have to realize this. But for me, this is maintaining a lifestyle similar to what I would live in the US. When I say similar, I'm mainly focused in on housing, entertainment, being able to get around, these things that I deem important for my life. So for me, I think we've all had this, and I tell people the first thing you want to do when you're looking at moving abroad is you have to create a must-have list. So what is your must-have? My must-have, I have to have water. I have to be in a place where, I mean, there's sort of a community around me, or there's other things that I want to sort of get into. Um, for me, and it's interesting because as I look at this, my list has changed so much over the years from when I first came in. So when I first came in, my must-have was living in the center of the city, easy to get transport around, water, air conditioning. I think in steady electricity, like I always need electricity. Now, 10 years in, the only thing that I still water. And this is because I feel like everything else is so flexible. And now I have a vehicle. And I actually have learned that living outside of the city has a lot of different advantages, particularly it's just a lot cheaper than when you live in the city. So for me, even I think that living as a local, like it's something that really evolves, like sort of the longer that you've been here. One thing though, I know for me is I remember even when I was first looking for a house, or an apartment. And I remember I was leaving Councilman's and they were like, oh, we want to show you this place. And it's a compound and then you'll share the bathroom. And it was actually a decent place. Like I have a friend from Europe that actually rented a place like this in Osu. She was very happy. She really liked it. Something about me though, I cannot live in harmony on a compound. Know yourself. Like, know yourself.
Well,
And I think a
why is
large part
this?
of that, because I think a large
What's up
part
with
of
the
it is that
compound?
you really have to be really patient and understanding of everyone. So it's like people expect you to contribute to doing certain things. So, example, I used to rent an apartment on their property. So in front of it was like a little provision store, like something, it's like a convenience store. Behind the gate was their main house. Then they had two apartments. So I rented the apartment that's over the provision store. Sounds great. Then I move in, and the old man calls us down for a meeting. Number one, I don't even know what I'm meeting you for because I've already paid my rent. So I don't even do meetings like this. So he calls down, he wants to do a meeting. So we come down. He's like, oh, we're all living here together. So we have to understand, blah, blah, fine. So then he starts talking about how we should all sweep the compound. You know, I ain't sweeping no damn compound. I was like, yeah, that's not something I can do, but I can commit money to someone that you find to do it. Then he was like, there's a curfew. So he was like, because he goes to bed at a certain time and the gate disturbs him, everyone should look at being in the house by a certain time.
Hmm.
I'm 37 years old. I leave the house and come in the house when I want to. And then my husband, it was actually just my boyfriend then, and he spent the night one night. And the look of like this, the lady came out, the look she gave George was like one of total disgust. I'm not a compound liver.
They all in your
I,
business.
all in the
But
business.
that's you touched on something very important in understanding the culture. Definitely understanding the culture and the place where you live. Cause yeah, it can get real spicy. They will be in your business and they will be looking, and the look of disgust that they will give you in Ghana is second only to a disappointed mother. That is the only thing it would be second to.
That's a great
That
analogy.
hold on, sorry, I'm up here moving this thing around.
Like when your mama
Um,
find out that you skipped school that day with your friends to go drink
like my
and you can't
son,
even render punishment immediately. Like,
you just can't even breathe. Just yeah, I remember. I can't even. I don't want to tell on myself because I don't want to contribute to bad behavior in other minors that may be watching. But yeah, I remember. I remember my mom being very disappointed. So yes, I think we were talking about must-have lists. So I think you mentioned living above a provision store. To me, that would be like it would sound like heaven. Because one of the things I have to have is I have to be like walking distance from a grocery store or something of that nature. I don't drive. I choose not to drive. I will probably never ever drive. I'll hire a driver. I'll buy a vehicle at some point. But as of now, Uber is doing its thing. So yeah, but I need to be walking distance to some things of like some small entertainment spaces, maybe like a little drinking spot. It can be local, it can be whatever level, something like that. I have to have 24-hour lights. Again, like I would have a bigger problem. It would be easier for me for somebody to give me a curfew than for me to have to deal with restrictions on lights. So
but now
typically
I
within the
know
African.
you, Sean. So let's just talk about what has led to that decision that 24-hour lights are critical for you. Like what you just shared some of your experience. Like why is that such a critical factor for you?
Man, because I've lived in some terrible places. I've tried to be like to test my local skills to actually say I lived like a local. And
Okay, let's
after like a
define your
year,
level of local. Let's define your level of local. Which level of local are
yeah,
you living
American. um, I mean, I'm just gonna be real. Like, I try to have the infrastructure be as international as possible, meaning 24-hour lights, strong internet connection. I'm failing in that quite often. I have like 3 different service providers for internet because one always fails at some point in time. Um, but yeah, as far as everything else, where I try to live local more so comes down to the food type things, fast moving consumer goods, those daily choices that I make as far as what type of things I buy. Like, I have a bit of a sweet tooth sometimes, but I can either buy, whatever the local things are, or I can buy like Snickers and Reese's and Twix and stuff. I don't really buy Reese's, Snickers, and Twix anymore. Sometimes I buy Chin Chin, which is like a local corn-based hard fried snack. Like, it's far cheaper. For one Twix, I would get like 2 buckets of Chin Chin, and it's probably healthier, not by much. But again, another example, I was having we had a gathering, not a gathering. We had a few people over the house last night. We were making beads and doing wine. Ronke has her bead company. She's soft launching now called Ileke. So
at?
one of the ladies there runs this establishment called The House. It's a very popular nightclub here. And basically, she was going through like kind of how the global supply chain breaking down was basically crippling a lot of the different clubs that were, again, trying to create that international experience. Her establishment is seen as high end or like mid level, but again, it's the idea is the concept of it having different rooms in a house that basically you would come in, relax, order food, and chill with your friends. So really cool thing. But again, she was saying that she was able to be kind of COVID proof in her business model based on the fact that all of her things that she bought here was sourced locally in Lagos, Nigeria. So not only was it also sourced within the continent, not only was it all sourced within the country, it was also all sourced within the city. So she was able to, again, be able to operate, not have to shut anything down, not have to limit her menu or anything like that, by, again, being a person that's lived abroad, lived in the UK and other places, but made sure her supply chain was solely dependent upon local goods and services.
Yeah, so I would, I think that that's really interesting that you say that, because I think that you do have to look at diet. So we're going to share this picture with you guys where basically I went to the grocery store today, and a box of Cheerios, 1 pound box, is 108 Ghana cedis. If you do the math, this is like maybe $20 or so. Would I ever spend $20 on Cheerios? Never in my life. But these are things that you're going to face when you move abroad. And I think that one thing I've learned about living local is that the more you can adapt your diet, the better off you are. And I think not only financially, but I think health-wise. When I was in the US, I would really struggle with my weight, like keeping weight off. And I find it so easy here to maintain a healthy weight. And a large part of that is the diet, is that, like you said, I mean, you don't really have access to sweets and other things like this. Even the sweets that they make, they're technically not as sweet as what you would find in the US, or they're fresh baked. So it's not going to be a lot of things that have a lot of processed sugar and other ingredients that you don't necessarily know about. I think also when it comes to diet, you really want to look at this before you move. I always tell people, not only do you need to define your level of local that you want to live on, but you also need to check the food diet to make sure that it's really right for you. I'm telling you, if you're vegetarian or vegan at this point, Africa is really the place for you to be, because it's so easy for you to adapt the diet into being meat free. It's so easy.
Are you sure it's easy to adapt? Well, okay. I think that the local food, the soups, and I don't know. I think that the raw products are here, but I don't see a lot of restaurants, a lot of different things. It's changing slowly but surely, but that's price-wise, that's going to put you in a different bracket.
But I also feel like, okay, but I'm in Ghana. Ghana is a little bit different from Nigeria. We have to acknowledge this. Nigerian food is not the best. I've been to Nigeria. I'm not impressed by their local food. If I was living in Nigeria, I too would probably be a little bit some way. However, though, when I look at Ghana, the food is very flavorful. It actually, like Nigerians, they like to make their food hot, but for me, there's no flavor. So it's plenty of spice, but flavor, it no day. So I think for Ghana, the amount of flavor, they use a lot of garlic, a lot of ginger, a lot of cumin powder. Curry is very big here. So when I look at the spices and how it's done, I absolutely think it's good. Some of my favorites are contomere, which is like a spinach that's cooked down. Also have there in Nigeria, all the soups are my favorite. So I can eat any soup any time of the day. Ghana jollof definitely outnumbers Nigerian jollof any day of the week. So that's also a topper. But even when it comes down to broke man kofi, which is basically like grilled plantain, and then you can get the grilled coconut attached. That's your life right there. It'll cost you 1 cedi, which is about 20 cents, and you'll get a whole grilled plantain hot, and then they're even going to give you some ground nuts, aka peanuts, on the side. This is what life is. We have Burkina, which I love, which is a yogurt that has millet inside of it. It's my life. Another favorite thing that I love to eat locally is we actually have peanut brittle in Katia cake. which basically is just peanut brittle. Fabulous. So when I look at, we even have a toffee, which is very similar to a Chico stick. All of these things in Ghana are just absolutely amazing. And then really fruit. I mean, you just really can't go wrong with some fresh fruit and good yogurt and with some honey on top. I have to be honest.
First of all, you're talking real reckless about food. I know that you're in Ghana and you feel safe. But one does not, let me tell everybody on the Broad Wild Black, you think it's okay just to talk about jollof just like it's food. It's not just food. It's a way of life. And for you to talk about, I'm just saying, you got to be careful. I don't want to see Cordy in witness protection 2 weeks from now because she just recklessly saying, I am, those are her own independent views.
People, we know what's happening.
You treat jollof rice. No. You. That's for you. You can have your points. You got security. You know people. You connected. For all of y'all who may be new to the continent of Africa, you treat jollof rice like you treat your political views. You don't tell people who you vote for. You understand? You keep it to yourself. That's how you do jollof rice. If you don't know. Now, once you get some people behind you, you got a couple of thugs, some gangsters, then you can start talking about what type of jollof rice you like. Outside of that,
this is how you know Sean he's never even had proper jollof because it's jollof. He's never had proper jollof. He doesn't know jollof rice.
I'm from the South.
He doesn't know
that's
jollof.
Just what it is.
You see,
I'm from
jollof
the
is
South.
not jollof.
Just because you moved to Accra and wanted to switch up the whole way you walk, talk, and breathe. I'm proud of my Southern culture.
This is something else, though, I think about learning to live like a local is people fail to realize that though you may move to a country that speaks English, the accent may actually be completely different. So particularly as a U.S. citizen, you have to realize that the U.S. didn't have colonies throughout the world. It's really Britain that did. So people are much more familiar with the British accent and the British words than they are with the American words. So living like a local, you do have to actually be able to adapt or adopt some basic speaking habits or interaction things that really sort of help make your life a lot easier. You don't have to per se learn to fluently speak the local language, but you need to say, hello, how are you? I'm fine. Where is? How much is it? Give me some of these basic things that make life a lot easier. If not, I think you sort of make yourself a target for a setup of being overpriced consistently. Because Sean, let's just talk about living like a local. I've seen you adapt your whole dressing style to the African dressing style.
Oh yeah. Because it's very interesting. Because when I first came here and I was going to meetings and I was wearing my suit and different things like that, and I didn't know, and previously in my life, I was not a person who was like a heavy sweater. But in the African continent, I was just sweating profusely. I think I was in a very humid place, but I've always been around humid places. I didn't get that part, but I sweated a lot. And I decided that shifting over into the dress code at one point, it made sense to me just from the local temperature just being there. And then culturally, it just started to make sense to me. Again, this may be a spicy thing to say, knowing that I don't know the full history and context of what he did. But Gaddafi, for example, was meeting with international leaders and whatnot, and had his local traditional dress, while everybody else from all these different places had on suits and different stuff like that. Seeing that always kind of gave me the same feeling I had when I was watching Black Panther, just seeing amazing, dope people in their own local context at the international level. So again, but that's a whole nother one. I think you also touched on something very important, which is kind of learning local languages to avoid being price gouged. They were hitting me in my head, especially with clothes and different things like that. They were definitely getting me. I have a thing for beads, different stuff like that. So I was paying Manhattan, US prices for street beads that were pennies on the dollar. Again, I think that one of the things that
it's you think is really amazing, but locals really think is just average.
Yeah, that too. You'll think something's the hottest thing you ever seen. Like, oh, it coordinates. It goes with the J's. But everybody else is like, he hella corny. Like, he real corny. He real
Like
extra
totally,
foreign right now.
totally.
Black or
I see
blue.
this like with women in dresses. Like they'll be so into these African print dresses and modern styles that they're like, "Oh my God, I just had to have it." I'm like, "How much did you pay for it?" And they're like, "I paid 300 Ghana." And I'm thinking in my mind, "Boo, that's a 50
Like,
CD dress."
man, I ain't gonna lie. I can go bring this fashion show out my closet right now. But like getting you a tailor, like getting you a legit tailor, oh man, it takes your
I
life
agree.
to a
There's
whole
nothing
new
like
level.
getting a tailor. If you're going to live, particularly on the continent, this is one of the best things you can do to live locally, particularly if you have an eye for fabric and you already know the Western fashion or the fashion that you want. It is extremely cheap to have a great tailor that you do business with on a regular basis. And who doesn't like a tailored outfit?
Man, I got three brand new three-piece suits that fit me like a glove. And I ain't got nowhere to go. I ain't got nowhere to go. But when I go, it's on. But like it's like three of these suits that fit me very well, fabrics and colors and different things that I like. Now I have a special deal because I've had my tailor for probably like the last two years. These three suits cost me 100K, 100,000 naira, 100,000 naira. Sorry, I should have did this math before. At the time, that's $200 for three suits. So that's like, what was that?
Tailored
JB
suits. Boo, tailored
tailored
suits.
suits to me specifically. Yeah. And what's that suit? There was that commercial where they were selling 3, 4, 5 suits at a time on TV, whatever the case may be. These ain't the box suits that you was getting from Burlington Coat Factory, where you still
Hey,
got to go and get
what?
somebody to hem at the bottom. Maybe that's
That's
just me.
it.
But yeah,
Yeah, I
so
totally agree.
yes. And then also that gives you the opportunity to have like your clothes that kind of like represents your style of fashion. There's a different feel when I walk out now with my clothes, knowing that like I designed that. This fits the way I want it to fit. The colors I like, the cut I like. I have a long neck, so I like to get clothes that have like a lot of my collars are very high with the one button, like the priest cut. That's what I like. That goes very well with me. So it's kind of like I can just go and see something on Instagram or whatever, and just take a picture, send it, and say, hey, I want this in my size. And they already have my
Yeah.
measurement.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And I think that there's so many amazing local tailors at this point that I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just unbeatable. And I think that that's just really critical. And also, I think that's important about when you learn to live like a local is that you must remember you're never really going to be local. So I don't care what you do, who you marry, how well you think you've integrated, you're still never 100% going to be local. There are still things that I do because they provide me comfort and it's what I want to do because I sort of need that. So I might be buying the mango ice cream or the coffee latte ice cream for 30 CDs a pop. I think that you have to realize that there are going to be things that are going to be worth paying for you if they really, I mean, love you and I mean, they hit your soul. I know even Sean's brother came to Ghana, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago when he came to visit Sean here. And one of the things I had him bring me was yellow cornmeal. And it probably seems really stupid for a lot of people, but it's hard to find good cornmeal to make cornbread. And one thing I've learned
Cornbread.
about living local, yes, like proper cornbread with the honey on top. I'm Southern too. So
No, you're
one
not.
of
You
the
keep
things,
pronouncing the R. There ain't no R in cornbread. I don't know
well,
you
I
anymore.
mean, that's fine. Cornbread. I wanted to
Please
make proper
continue.
cornbread. So, but part of this is I think you also have to realize is that part of being local is that there are going to be certain things that you just don't want to get rid of. I think that you can find a local way to do them. I don't really buy a lot of sweets, but I've learned to bake cakes and other things from scratch. This is definitely a talent that I didn't have in the US. I've learned to make my salad dressings from scratch because I'm not paying a large price. Once again, a talent I definitely didn't have in the US. So I think for
Wait,
me,
wait,
I've learned
wait.
to
What salad dressings are you making?
So I make everything. I make a great honey vinaigrette. I make a balsamic vinaigrette. I can make a honey mustard salad dressing. So I make a wide variety. I don't do the milk-based one, so no ranch. But
Oh,
those that are
okay,
oil and
okay.
vinegar, yeah,
Yeah,
but it is
never
oil
mind.
and vinegar based.
You're not making salad dressing. I thought you was that's vinegar and seasoning. That anybody can do that. I thought you was making salad dressing. Primarily ranch. I was about to buy a ticket. I buy
Now you
ranch. I live with ranch. Ranch,
now you
Sweet
see
Baby
this is
Ray's.
you see this is how you know Shauna is black because you know black people the only salad dressing we got is ranch and French dressing. We just get turned. The only thing
She
we use
got
Italian for is to season our chicken for baking. Like
also true.
if you ain't got ranch, that ain't salad dressing.
If you ain't got ranch, I ain't eating your salad. That was
So yeah, so these are some of the
anyway.
things that I've learned to really do. But I think that it helps sometimes to be able to learn to cook these things and to move with it. And I think that there's always just going to be certain luxuries and other things that you want to
Mhm.
bring from home. I also think one of the key things about living, learning to live like a local is you have to learn to go to the market. You cannot live your life inside of a grocery store. It's just 100% impossible. Certain things are just so much cheaper at the market. I don't buy fruits at the market. I don't buy, or at the grocery store. I don't buy vegetables at the grocery store. Even certain commodities, I don't buy at the grocery store because really what you're paying for is the packaging, and that's not always as important. So I think that you definitely have to think about that and sort of see how that goes in particular. So you definitely have to know the difference of being able to shop at the market versus shopping at the grocery store, because if you're always going to the grocery store, it's going to be really, really expensive, like really expensive.
Yeah, let me add this. You must go to the grocery store or you will forever, the whole time you are especially from the African context, you will get cheated on every price for everything that you buy. For the simple fact that you won't know the prices. If you want to know how much things cost for real, go to the market, go to the big local markets. Now, I'm not going to lie, they're going to be overwhelming. They're going to be like, they're going to be so busy. A lot of people running here. If you look like you're not from around there, people will be harassing you a little bit. Hey, come here, buy this, come here, buy this, because you're going to look like money. I typically, when I go to the market, make sure I dress down as much as possible and just try to, or if I go there more than
Blend
once,
in.
kind of have a
That's
contact
it.
that,
Blend in. Don't do
yeah,
things that make you
that
stick
will
out.
lead
Don't
me.
go in your loud African print with your book bag and your beads all
Mm-mm.
around your neck and your arm. How much is this, man? Like, I mean, just don't set yourself up for it. And I think you also bring this something else. When you're moving abroad, everybody needs a real
Uh-oh, Cordy, it looks like you cut out a bit. Uh-oh, Cordy, you back?
Yes, I am. So when you actually do this, you want to really have a good local friend. And you need to understand
Yes,
where that local
yes.
friend actually falls in your life. Um, a good local friend will save you so much time, so much money, and so much frustration. They are that person that will go and run the errands that you really just don't know how to do. They're the person that's going to haggle for you when you don't know how to haggle yourself. They're the person that's going to
Yes.
show you how to get around in your new city and be able to support all those things. Sometimes you have a really local friend that integrates really well into your personal local life of where you are. But sometimes that
Mm-hmm.
local friend may not quite reach the area. And that means that you need to have a space and a time for that local friend versus a space and that time for your local life friends.
Explain more about that. Go deeper into that, because that's you hitting on something now.
So you see, I think one thing we have to realize is that in the US, you know that you can be educated and end up in a variety of ways. degree and be working at Starbucks, right? You can basically be a bartender all of your life. It doesn't necessarily take away from anything, but you have to be able to understand the context of these things in your new culture. So if you're living a very local life, you decide you want to live on local level one, then your local friends you take will probably fit into your local level one life. If you decide that you want to live local, but most of your friends will come from local level 3 or 4, which is the I'm building my house, I'm owning my house, I'm very well established, I'm in a certain network, you may realize that your local necessarily translate well into that particular group. And that's because when you are all the same color, the thing that actually separates you is class. And so you'll find that even sometimes your very local friend is not even comfortable being around your other friends that might be on a level 3 or a level 4. You'll find that they actually don't really want to communicate. Even if you're sitting in a group, they have a tendency to shy back or not say something. So just to avoid discomfort for everyone, you need to do an assessment of your local friend and figure out, is this my local, or is this my local level friend that spans across all of my local experiences from 1 to 4?
You have touched on something amazing. So classism in the African continent exists. And it doesn't just exist in a way where people will visually look and see that somebody's of a higher class, or somebody will look and see if somebody is of a lower class and just recognize that they're different. No, people of a lower class will not feel welcome, and technically they are not welcome and they do not belong. And internally they'll be like, maybe people will be, because you're
They're
around,
definitely
people
going to
will
say
look at.
something nasty to them in the local language, by all means.
Exactly.
They will
Maybe
definitely
they,
say
yeah, maybe
something,
it's not
definitely.
as bad if you bring somebody and they're your guest, but they're definitely going to be looking at you now like maybe you're of a similar class to them, and no matter what your accent or whatever is, you're not necessarily in their class. Now, to me, this is very painful from the African American context, knowing that we, in many ways, are the lowest class, and we are fighting to kind of have people see us as equals. So when I see somebody who's a victim of classism, I feel bad. But I also know that from the business perspective, I have to also make sure that I'm well positioned to be able to move in the places I need to move to and talk to the people I need to
Real
talk to.
talk,
And I
Sean. Real talk.
I don't need a situation where certain things are confused, which is, again, it's a painful thing to make. Like me and the guy who cleans my house, I have had a very, 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 he lives here. And we see each other every day. And it's like, from American context, like we homies, like we bros, like you do your stuff or whatever, and everything will keep working. But from his context, like I'm like the master of the house. I'm freaking Bruce Wayne, and he's he's the butler. So it's kind of like that dynamic that sometimes can make me feel uncomfortable. But I know that he has to be aware and he has to keep that up, because the last thing I need to happen is I have somebody of notable whatever that I'm trying to get in to do a business deal or something like that, and my house person is coming up here slapping me in the back of the head like, hey, what's up, bruh? Like, it's going to be a very embarrassing affair.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You do have to really be able, and once again, it's really just even about knowing where you want to be. I'd like to think that most people that live abroad are really moving abroad to seek a better life and more opportunities. And I tell people, bottom line, they say it's lonely at the top. When you climb
Mm.
the ladder, you do have to make the decisions about how you want to be seen, who you want to mingle with, and how that actually is going to reflect. So, once again, it doesn't mean that you can't meet this local friend at a local bar in the corner where no one will see you, or invite that local person over when no one else is around and have a conversation. But you definitely don't want to take them to a very high class party and then he's there. And you'll find also really the behavior, etiquette, and interaction is just so much different. And this is something I think Black people can relate to, because in every family, I don't care how well to do you are or how far you come, everybody got that one family member, that one cousin that still reminds y'all of like who you really were one generation ago or 2 generations ago. It's the same thing. You really have to be able to compartmentalize people and realize what is their purpose in your life And some people's like, I don't want to live like that. That's so bougie. Go local.
Well, let me touch on this because you touched on something that's very important. And what we as Black people need to realize that the thing that we are talking about, the classism that we are experiencing, is directly in certain capacities. I know that there's the royal families and the tribes and different things like that, but also there's an element of that that is alive and well in the UK system as well. And just keep in mind that at the African continent, there are quite a few, especially within West Africa, that were colonies of the UK and are under that type of thing, that type of thinking of what is your pedigree, where are you from, what have you done, what is your bloodline type of talk. And with that being said, what we in Black America need to realize is that the US was also a colony of the UK. And I think that that same talk of pedigree and bloodline and different things of that nature also exists within the American context. The difference being that with Black people being at the bottom of the barrel, we don't have access to that. We're not part of those conversations. So we're not even aware of classism, how different class work, how they communicate with each other, how to go inside and outside of different
I
classes.
got to stop you on that one. I got to stop you because I do feel like Black people are very aware of classism. That's why you don't take your cousin, Pookie, and them over with your work friends because you know that he doesn't belong with your work friends. He cool to kick it at grandma's house on the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, and Memorial Day. But you're not going to invite him to your company barbecue or to your yacht party with your new friends that you've made from university. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, you have to compartmentalize, and people sort of make it seem like it's something that happens only when you move abroad. But I mean, this is something you have to be more conscious of. But I think that most Black people are actually already pros at doing this.
Well, I think you're right, but I think I want to just kind of zero in and make sure we are paying more attention to it. And when I say this, a lot of who this is directed to would be more so of a Candace Owens, who needs to realize no matter how well she talks, no matter how much she louds the Republican talking points and and is a banner bearer, all those different things, she is not of their class. She will never belong. She will never be one of them. That's just the way it is.
But but the difference is, I think, is that when you move to another continent is that you can actually recreate where you are and who you want to be and what class you're going to align yourself. Yes. But once again, I think to make those sacrifices and know where. But yes, I think that if you can't successfully make the leap, I think very few of us are going to get into the super uber high bougie crowd. Like, I think that chances of that happening is just no, because money mingles with money, and that's a worldwide thing. So I think that they'll be cool with you, but I mean, money once again mingles with money. So they're looking at where did you go to school? Because once again, if you have this type of money in Africa, you've been abroad so many times, you know other people that have money like you, like having the relationships with people that are from the US. They're cool to hang out with from time to time, but I mean, you're just not going to ever be there. But that doesn't mean that you can't come from a level 2 to a level 3, as I would call it on the local chart, right?
Yes. And you bring up something very, very, very interesting. So even with myself, I had to realize that I was walking in a certain circle. Sometimes I think a good point to remember is that sometimes you may think that, well, you just have to realize, especially as a Black American, where you fall into that spectrum and how to conduct yourself. Just because you're cool and you're hanging out with certain people, don't let it take you and think that you're one of them. You still need to conduct yourself a certain way. Also realize that sometimes you'll get close to certain circles, but you won't realize that you're dealing with the black sheep of a certain circle. And even though you may they may accept that person.
That's a word right there.
Exactly.
They're not ready to hear that one.
Yes. So like I know several
hobnobbing and you don't realize that dude is a cokehead behind closed doors.
It's not even exactly. It's not just the fact that they're a drug dealer or whatever, but it's some things where like if let's say this, if I'm filthy rich and my brother's a crackhead, Of course, my brother can come to the family event. It's unfortunate it's a crackhead and whatever the case may be. But now if you're my brother's friend and he brings you, maybe I don't turn you around at the door, but don't think that just because you came here with my crackhead brother that me and you are going to talk and do business. We are not. Matter of fact, if I would have met you in a different context, maybe something could have happened. But now that I know you are hanging out with my crackhead brother, nah, fam, we can't do nothing. And you have to be
Living
aware
like a
of these certain
local,
things.
something character is important. And I think one of the things I've learned about living like a local, and we've touched about this, is you have to be able to really keep your composure. I think the African American way of dealing with things is sometimes to be a little bit aggressive and even break down in communication, particularly if you feel disrespected or disenfranchised from a conversation. We have a tendency to respond in anger. And I think one of the key things that you have to be able to really do is be able to keep your composure. And I think that this actually brings another level of respect, and it's really needed in your new environment. I think that if you're unable to be able to do that successfully, then I think that it also is going to be very challenging for you to live like a local, because you'll be burning bridges with people that wanted to help you or people that could have helped you. Because, you know, as much as the city is large, it's still very small, and you want to try to maintain as many bridges as you want so that you don't end up drowning.
Man, preach, preach. Because the thing is, you are an outsider and you never know how things will change and how it will impact you and who you will need, because you never, you know, you're not going to know everybody. So sometimes there are situations where you don't know what role somebody is. Like I remember again, I was hanging out with this guy. He was really cool, just a really chill, laid back guy. He had a few questionable habits, but I mean, outside of him going in his corner and doing these questionable habits, I was fine. I just thought he was just some local guy that just happened to be in the area that I was at. This is when I was running a restaurant. He just happened to be in the area. Now this guy invites me to hang out and have a drink with him one day, and I'm like, okay, sure, let's go have a drink. And he's like, all right, don't worry, we got to stop by my house right quick. I go and stop by his house. We pull into the gate. There are several Rolls Royces. The house itself is bigger. The walkway or the entrance into his house is bigger than my entire apartment. Like this was like generational wealth I had just walked into. So like, but again, I mean, you just gotta, yeah, it's just very interesting how you can walk into different situations not knowing who people are. And again, there are certain points where, no, there are just certain points where I've bumped into people not knowing exactly who they are and find out that they're incredibly connected spaces, and where I might have insulted them or said something rude and they could have ruined my entire life. And I never would have thought. They would have never said anything. They could have been still there beside me, having drinks or whatever, watching my entire life burn.
Yeah, and that's one thing I think you
to
really have to learn, is that people do move a little bit differently. And
Yes.
because people aren't going to be as aggressive with you, it doesn't mean that they won't be behind the scenes pulling the rug from underneath you at every chance that they get. So I think it's always
Yes.
important to keep your composure, try to be as cool as possible, just to make sure that everything is together and that you're really on top of it. Something else about living like a local. People always talk about, oh, I can't wait to hire people to get house help and all of this. Living like a local, you
Hmm.
have to have certain boundaries with house help and other people. And I think that particularly we as Black Americans, because we've never had help, we don't understand what these limits are. And I think that they can very easily be blurred. I think Sean touched upon this earlier. But if you know that this is something that you're going to embark on, then you need to also understand, like, what is going to be that level. How are you going to engage? What are going to be the boundaries that you set in your household to ensure that you don't incite chaos at some
Hmm.
level, or that you don't incite gossiping and all of your business ending up in the a
Hmm.
driver. But I'll never hire a driver because I know that they have a tendency to sit around and gossip. Let me tell you about house help. House help, particularly if you live in a place where there's a lot of house help, they start mingling. Before you realize it, they are telling everybody about your business. For me, drivers are the worst people because you go to the same places and most of your friends have drivers. So when you're all inside hanging out, The drivers are sitting down discussing you and what you've done and who you've been with and all of these things. They, because they're in the car, they hear all of your phone conversations. If you're in there with your spouse or significant other, they hear every single conversation. The driver is like a key. The driver, you need to make sure that that mofo is bona fide.
Mm-hmm. These drivers and different people, house help behind robberies, setups, all different types of things. I would suggest in these spaces, again, you'll have to build, you can't live anywhere like a local or live anywhere safely without having people there from there that understand how things work. And when it comes to hiring house help and even artisans, plumbers, tailors, all of these different things, it's best. This is why word of mouth works, but it's best to lean on those people who can provide you with trusted people. That way, even if something does go wrong, you have a way, or you have somebody who can connect you or help you find that person. Somebody who knows
This
their
is it.
family,
Don't
who
be too
knows where they
trusting,
hang out
living
and
like a
have
local.
drinks.
Don't be like, no, he's cool. He's been over a few times. It could all
Nobody's
be a
cool.
setup.
Nobody is
Nobody.
cool. We touched on a few things. I think also, if we're talking about understanding the culture, I think another important thing too is identify like who the aspirational figures are. Understand like who wants to be like who and what those people are, like what do they value. I think that's a great learning element. Again, I think the perfect example in Ghana would be like somebody like a Shatta Wale is immensely popular. He's a celebrity, but he talks the most ridiculous things every time you hear him.
I was gonna say I wouldn't
And
really want to be affiliated with him. But Shata, if you give me some tickets, I holla, I'm there because I love your music. You like Cardi to me.
that is Ghana Cardi B, the male version of Ghana Cardi B. Yes, no, I think he's way more ignorant. No, I don't think. Nah, I don't like him. No, no, no. I'm not gonna say I don't like him. I just his energy is definitely not like Cardi B. But
I
you have
wouldn't
to
hang out with
realize
you.
that,
I wouldn't hang out with you, Shata, but it's cool. You probably wouldn't hang out with me either.
and I would definitely hang out with Cardi B. I remember when she was in Lagos. Me and the
I
dancers
don't
and
know if I hang out with
very
Cardi.
very
I
cool.
don't know. She came to Ghana too. I feel like Cardi is a little bit much for me, but I love you from afar, Cardi. I love you from afar. Since loving hip hop before your teeth was done, I love you, Cardi. You out there
Woo!
doing your thing. I love Cardi, but I don't.
These are all the backhanded comments. This is why women can't get along and y'all be ready to kill each other over everything. This is ridiculous. This is
Cardi
savage.
has come up.
I was
No, but Cardi
blindsided.
has come
Cardi,
up.
I love you. Again, Cardi, she does not reflect the views of all of us here at Abroad While Black. She
There's
is her
only two
own
of us,
person.
John.
I love you, and
I mean,
we
I
can
love
do business
Cardi, but I
together.
just don't feel like we could hang out together. But I love Cardi.
You remind me of this song. I think it was by this illustrious poet named Drake called "Fake Friends, Fake Love, Fake Something." Anyway, um, find out who people aspire to be, and that will give you a lot of insight into how people do business or how people want to be, what people aspire to. Find out what those values are by understanding who the celebrities are for different people and understanding why they are celebrity. Another thing I would say to do is, whenever possible, especially when you first move to a place, find you a popular local spot, find you a corner to get into, and kind of just start observing and watching how people are, especially when they're consuming alcohol. I think one of the greatest things I learned, or I wish I would have learned earlier, or one of the things that I observed in social culture, it hit me late. And I think when I first came there, especially in Accra, I was too busy trying to prove I was cool and be accepted before I really started looking at who is I being accepted by and why. Exhibit A was I was shutting women down left and right when I was in the dating scene. And it was because like I would be going on a date and this woman would pop up with like her and two or three or four of her friends. And I'm like, who do you think I am? Do you think I'm out here taking all of you and your friends out and like, why are you trying to take advantage of me? This is so rude, out of line, and different things like that. But at first, I had to realize after going out a few times and
That
looking
wasn't the
around,
next snap, was it, Sean?
what's that?
That wasn't the next snap, was it? That wasn't the next snap, was it?
No, there was no next snap. What are you talking about?
I mean, we watched the video. There was a neck snap. If you saw the neck snap, hit like. Look.
I ain't worried about nothing. Man, I ain't worried about nothing. Anyway, so what I figured out was basically by watching people dating was that like there were a lot of guys with like a bunch of girls, and I thought these guys were like pimps and players, and like I was like, oh man, it's lit out here. It's an ocean. I just got to get my money up so I can take 4 or 5 girls on a date. But no, what I started to realize was basically that culturally, or if you just look at the world in general, it's not necessarily safe for women. So these women go out in groups. Even when it comes to going out in dates, they go in groups. And also culturally and socially, women kind of in certain spaces in the African context going on one-on-one dates. Either they're like married in some committed relationship or they are ashawo. So like it was kind of like understanding that cultural element that kind of allowed me to better understand even just dating like a local. You see what I'm saying? Again, I had to go on dates with more than one person at a time to get to the person that I actually was interested in, but it was a part of the process.
Yeah, I think that that is very interesting. Is that dating locally is also very different than dating if you were in the U.S. And dating locally really does mean being a little bit more discreet. It means not putting all of your eggs in one basket. We have a tendency to be really affectionate. When we've been on 3+ dates with somebody, some of us 1+ dates, but I'm not really um, judging nobody. But basically, we do have a tendency to be a little bit more affectionate. And here, people don't really do that. So if you're out with somebody, even if you really like them, it's not something where you per se are holding their arm or holding their hand. There's definitely no real kissing in public. So all of these things are definitely things that we have to be able to really think about when you're looking at dating locally. And it actually makes you look, particularly if you're a woman, it actually makes you look very cheap. I hate when American women come to Ghana and they're dating the local Rasta or the local boy that really ain't worth nothing, but they think he's gold. And like they're walking everywhere and like hand on the shoulder and around the waist and giving kisses in public. Like you're really lessening your value. And it's something that, once again, with this being such a small space, you don't really want people to look at you in that particular manner. So I think dating locally, we need to also understand that the level of affection you might be seeking in public may not be appropriate for the culture.
Yeah, PDA is typically a no-no. It's typically a no-no. So then again, for guys out there watching, maybe we'll go into this more in depth in a broad while black after dark. But if you are dating somebody one-on-one at night that you met in a club and you happen to be able to be holding hands and touching on her and give her a kiss on the cheek or on the mouth, just understand what you're dealing with, sir. Someone that doesn't
And don't
mind.
be surprised if she starts to negotiate price before you leave the club.
Don't get caught up. If you're looking for what you're looking for, you might find it. But sometimes you find what you ain't looking for, and that ain't always good. It ain't always bad, but it usually ain't good.
Also, living locally, a few things you might want to realize about vehicles, transportation, this type of thing is that having a car does put you on a certain social status. But once again, depending on where you are, it's not always necessary. If you're living in a ritzy area, sometimes it's why people pay a little bit more because you're living in a ritzy area where everything is within walking distance. And even if you Uber, it's not far. It's completely different from living out in some rural area and not having a car and having to trotro 2 hours in. So also realize that if you want to look cool, not having a car, then you probably want to invest more in where you're actually living. You may also realize that sometimes the further out the place, the more difficult it is to get to without a vehicle. So you definitely want to keep this in mind whenever you're deciding where you want to live and what type of thing you want to live. So maybe when you look at your rent, it might seem really high or something you don't want to pay. But when you look at all the other benefits of that, it might actually add up in the end. Because one thing is that you cannot be living on local level 1 in the compound house and expect that you're going to have friends from local level 3 or 4 and be respected.
Facts. And that's not just the African continent. That's basically everywhere. And again, that's what I said, like sometimes we need to realize that class works everywhere, even where we are currently. And practicing now will prepare you for moves you may encounter later on in life. I think we've gotten to the end of our time for today. Another amazing session. Really, yeah, we touched on some really interesting things today. So we look forward to posting this up and getting comments and listening live and being there with you guys when you go through it. Please do your hosting parties, share this video. We also have an Abroad While Black YouTube channel. So please feel free to go there and look at some of our previous videos and things that we've posted. And of course, follow us on YouTube and Instagram at Abroad While Black.
Totally.
And follow
thanks
me.
all.
Oh, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you all for tuning in. Today we were talking about how to live like a local. So I think hopefully you've been able to figure out that if you're going to move abroad, what are some of the things that you can do to make that transition a little bit easier? Because as much as you are different, you need to find some way to be able to integrate into your new society. So hopefully some of these tips and tricks will help you integrate and be a little bit more successful at making the move if you decide to relocate outside of the US or whatever country you're in for greener pastures elsewhere.
Awesome. Thank you for that one, Courtney. And again, remember to follow us. Follow me at www.burroughsenterprises.com. I wrote an amazing article this week called Dissecting Black Tech Exclusion. I really do think that that's a conversation we'll probably have here on one of our sessions. Also look at, again, Serious Black on Instagram, BE Africa on Twitter. And we'll have these things posted at the end of the video and in the comment sections on YouTube. Courtney, where are we looking to find you?
So you can find me at Ghana, but I really don't tweet, so you may or may not catch me. But you can catch me on Instagram at Bola Bell. Most important, you can always PM me for questions and other things. Once again, I am working on this guide, so hopefully that should be up soon and available for purchase so that you can start creating the life that you envision abroad and putting all of your pieces together so that you can make an easy transition.
Also, we're talking about paid content. For those interested, I also did an ecosystem, a startup ecosystem map for Nigeria. So for those looking to get information on how to invest, what are the areas of tech that are popping, what types of businesses are launching, and kind of how one would go from a startup or an investor into launching, funding in other areas, reach out to me again, info@burroughsenterprises.com, or just go to the website to catch some excerpts.
Great. So thank you all for joining Abroad While Black today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.